Welcome to today's video where we're going to be diagnosing the cruise control on a Ram 1500. So in a previous video, I showed you how to replace the switch because the cruise control switch on my Ram wasn't functioning. And I was able to tell that by hooking up my scan tool. And when I was clicking the buttons here, they were non-responsive. So it indicated that the switch was bad. So we swapped that out and the cruise control has been working great for quite a long time. But recently it's not turning on anymore. So what we're going to do is hook the scan tool back up again, and we're going to see if there is a code or if the functions here are non-responsive again. The last time we switched it, we had no code present, but the switch just wasn't functioning. So this time around, we actually do have a code here. So this may help us kind of track this issue down and figure it out. It is a high circuit on the cruise control switch 1. So looking at the live data here, there's two lines here, input 1, input 2, and input 2 is reading 4.55 as 1, which is the high circuit is reading 5. So it looks like they're both 5-volt references, so the input 1 is probably maxing out and not showing us what the actual voltage is here. So what we're going to do is pull up some service data, and we're more than likely going to pull the steering wheel back apart, take the airbag out, take the switches out, and we'll do a little diagnosis there. So because I've gone through this process before, I know no matter what we do here, the airbag is going to need to be removed. So I've disconnected the battery here. We're going to allow the vehicle to sit for a while, and then we're going to go in and look at what our diagnosis steps are going to look like here. And that's going to allow the vehicle time to decharge the system so we don't have any issues with the airbag when we go and disconnect it. So looking at the code here, the P0581, it gives us a variety of possible causes: short of voltage, circuit open, the speed control switch, or worst case, the clock spring here. So we're going to run through some of these steps here. We're going to start kind of at the top and start tracking to see if we have a short to voltage. So it's looking like the first thing we're actually going to do is when we get this all apart, we're going to check the actual wiring. So we're going to pull up a wiring diagram too, and we're going to check that 5-volt line and see if it happens to have any breaks in it where the wire is exposed. So another interesting thing actually is for years 2012 2014, there is a recall actually here for the steering wheel wiring where the wiring harness was rubbing on something internal behind the airbag, and it's a possibility of damaging the wiring. So we're going to start with that and trace that line back and see if that is our possible cause here. And if not, we'll move forward in some other steps here and we'll see if we can figure out what the problem is. So we've now allowed the airbag time to sit, so I feel confident enough that we can start taking this all apart. There's going to be a handful of tools we need: star screwdriver, 3 different Torx bits, a T10, a T25, and a T20. That's going to get the column off, also the switch and this cover once the airbag's out. To remove the airbag, what we're going to need is a little mirror, because you're going to need to be watching from the inside here, as well as a hooked pry tool like this. So you can get a dealership tool that allows you to remove the airbag a lot easier, but it's kind of a specialty tool. It's a little expensive, so you can do it with this and a mirror instead. So we're going to start by taking off the cover here on the steering column. So you're going to use the T20. So you've got a couple Torx screws underneath here. So we've got the 3 removed. You'll have the 2 long ones here on the side and 1 shorter one here in the rear. And you should be able to pop off the top of the cover now. You can leave the bottom one on. It's not really going to cause you any problems here. So a little tip, because you need to spin the steering wheel around to get all three access points open, if you lift the vehicle up just where the front wheels are off of the ground, you're going to have no tension. You can actually spin the steering wheel around. So we're going to set up the little mirror here. And we're going to see if we can get these clips out. So another tip is when you're trying to get these clips removed here, what you're going to want to do is actually apply a little bit of pressure on each corner of the airbag. So it alleviates the pressure on the clip for you, so you can flick it upwards. So we've got the bottom one out here first. And we're going to work on the corners now. There we go. So this last one, I actually needed to stick a flashlight in there too, so I could see as well the clip. It was just a little too dark in there. So I'm going to drop down the airbag now. We have two connectors, yellow and black here. So there's two little push tabs here in the back, and then there's also a harness here that's holding in the airbag here that we need to disconnect. All right, so we now have the tab here that's also holding the airbag in position here. So the biggest thing to keep in mind when you remove your airbag is you do not want to sit it face down, because if it was to go off randomly, it will shoot up. So what we're going to do is place it down like this. So I'm actually going to move it onto the passenger seat here away from me and have it facing upwards with the logo emblem facing up. So now that we have the airbag off, the next thing we need to do is remove a couple more Torx and a few normal screws. So 2 Torx on the top, 2 screws on the bottom. And there's also 2 screws underneath the steering column. So the items that we need next, like I said, is a star screwdriver. So we're going to pop out that first screw. We're going to switch over to the Torx bit now. This is a T25. And if I remember, the 2 additional screws under here are also star. Maybe they are Torx. There we go. So we're going to start by disconnecting the switch on the left here, because I can get my fingers in there. The one on the right, it actually tends to be a little bit trickier to release because of how big the clip is. So what I did the last time, and I'm just going to skip and do it again this time, is I just used the Torx and actually released the whole switch with a T10. And we can remove that entire cover now. So we're looking over the wiring diagram here, and down here is the steering wheel control. So this one is 5 wires. We can see the speed control circuit one is the light green. So I've already got the switch pulled off, and I've disconnected the harness on both ends, and I think I may have figured out what the issue is here. So here is the switch harness, and this green wire here is the 5 volt for circuit 1. So it runs up here and it branches out into this connector here, which goes into the back into the clock spring. So looking at the green wire here, it's not actually staying stationary inside of the clip. So I can actually pull that wire directly out of the harness. It looks like it may have broken. So I think that this here is the reason we're having the problem. So I spent the last little while trying to depin this connector here. You can pop open the back of the connector here and then able to use a depinning tool to remove these pins, but I cannot seem to get any of them to budge out of this connector. So what I did was I went to my local scrapyard actually, and I found a harness from a same ramp but not as high as the trim level. So unfortunately my plan of just swapping the entire harness around isn't going to work because I have a higher trim level that has 2 extra connectors and a couple extra wires on this large clip. But what we're going to do is I'm actually going to cut back this connector here, snip back mine, and we're going to rewire in this new connector here, and that should solve our issue. So what I've done is cut off the connector end that I need off of the other harness that I picked up, and I've pulled back the sheathing, and I'm going to trim off the connection here, also pull that back, and then we're going to get this wire together. So I've got the existing connector here cut off. We've got our new connector here ready to go. So we're going to solder, heat shrink, and get this all put back together now. So I've got the connector rewired on, added a little bit of solder, I heat shrunk over top, and then I just added a little bit of additional electrical tape over the patches. I'm going to tape this harness back together so it stays in one piece, and then we're going to start reassembling everything, and then we're going to test it. So I've got the harness reinstalled to the clock spring, so we're going to connect both of our switches here again, and then we're going to get ready to put all the cover plates back on, and we can start to do our testing. So we've got both harnesses for each side of the buttons reinstalled here, and the cover plate is sitting loosely. Again, we've got 2 screws here, 2 screws there, and 2 underneath. We're going to start reinstalling here. So now that we're ready to reinstall our airbag here, the 3 hooks that you have to remove are these 3 tabs here. So they're hooked backwards. The way that it works, because I'm not able to show you when I'm taking it apart, is these little clips here will clip on and hook behind this, and this one. So what you're doing essentially is prying that clip down, and when you're pushing forward on the airbag, it's alleviating a bit of pressure. So when you pry down, it'll drop below, and then you can pull the airbag back up and remove it off the clip here. So to reinsert this, again, I'm just going to throw this back upside down because it's easier to clip this all back in when it's upside down. We've got the mounting clip here towards the front. You've got your yellow and black clip as well. So the tab is in, yellow is in, black is in. We're going to spin the airbag back upside down to the correct orientation. So just like that, the airbag is resecured here. So we're just going to drop this down, get ready to mount this top portion back on. Now that we've got everything inside hooked up, it's time to hook the battery back up. All right, so we've now run another report here, and we can see that the code is here, and it's now moved to stored instead of present. So let's go back here. We're going to clear this code. We're going to rerun our health report here. And just like that, we've fixed our issue. So now our voltage is at 4.53 instead of battery voltage, and our number 2 is still at 4.55. And now when I click the on and off, we can see that we do have the buttons with an active change on the first voltage. And just like that, now we can see our active buttons are working here again. So we're ready, we're off. If you found this video useful or enjoyed this content, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.